My sister took our family savings and ran off with her boyfriend. I was heartbroken until my mother said this. The morning my world collapse started like any other Tuesday. The smell of coffee drifted up the stairs, birds chirped outside my window, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt normal. I had no idea that by nightfall, I'd be questioning everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and the sister I'd grown up worshiping. I shuffled downstairs in my ratty slippers, the ones Rachel always teased me about. "Good morning," I called out, expecting to hear my sister's usual sarcastic comeback or see her hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table. Silence. "Mom? Rachel?" I called again, a strange uneasiness creeping up my spine. I found Mom sitting rigidly at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched, her face ashen. She clutched her phone in white-knuckled hands. "What's wrong? Where's Rachel?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. Mom didn't speak. She just slid her phone across the table with a trembling hand. The banking app was open. Our joint family savings account, the one Dad had set up before the cancer took him 8 months ago, showed a balance of $0. "This has to be a mistake," I whispered, frantically refreshing the screen. But the number didn't change. $78,942.13 gone. Every penny we'd scraped together after Dad's medical bills had nearly bankrupted us. My graduate school tuition, Mom's medication fund, our safety net,
gone.
"Check Rachel's room," Mom finally said, her voice hollow. I raced upstairs, my heart pounding against my ribs. Rachel's door stood open, unusual for my privacy-obsessed sister. Inside, dresser drawers hung open, clothes hangers scattered on the floor. Her passport was missing from the desk drawer. So was the leather travel bag Dad had given her for her 25th birthday. On her unmade bed lay a hastily scrawled note. "Don't try to find me. James and I deserve this money more than you ever did. You'll never understand what I've been through.
R. James."
Her boyfriend of 3 months. The one with the too white smile and vague investment job that none of us had been allowed to ask about. My knees buckled, and I sank onto Rachel's bed, the note crumpling in my fist. The betrayal crashed over me in waves. Every late-night conversation after Dad died, every tear we'd shed together, every promise to look out for each other, had it all been a cruel manipulation? I called the police, Mom said when I stumbled back downstairs. "They're on their way." 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later. Officer Brennan, a heavy-set man with kind eyes, and his partner, a younger woman who took notes with mechanical precision. "So let me get this straight," Officer Brennan said after hearing our story. "Your daughter, your sister, had legal access to this joint account." Mom nodded miserably. "And she withdrew the funds early this morning?" "All of it," I said, my voice cracking. "Every cent we had." The officers exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. "I understand this is distressing," the female officer said, "but without evidence of foul play, this appears to be a private family matter." "Private family matter?" I echoed in disbelief. "She stole our life savings from an account she was legally authorized to access," Officer Brennan clarified gently. "I'm sorry, but that makes it a civil issue, not a criminal one. They left us with a pamphlet on civil court procedures and sympathetic smiles that did nothing to fill the gaping hole in our lives." I spent the rest of the day in a daze, calling Rachel's phone until her voicemail filled up, then texting until my fingers cramped. No response. I checked her social media accounts, but they'd all gone dark. That night, I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by photo albums. Pictures of Rachel and me building sandcastles at the beach, opening Christmas presents, holding hands at Dad's funeral. In every photo, her smile now seemed foreign, like I was looking at a stranger wearing my sister's face. The weeks that followed brought more devastating revelations. Rachel had maxed out a credit card in Mom's name. She'd pawned Mom's anniversary diamond for cash. She'd even emptied Dad's rare coin collection, the one he'd planned for me to have. Then came the final blow. Rachel posted a photo on Instagram, just one. She was on a beach somewhere tropical, wearing oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. James's arm was draped around her shoulders. The caption read, "Finally living the life I deserve. Hashtag no regrets." I hurled my phone across the room, hearing the screen shatter with grim satisfaction. "Why aren't you angrier?" I demanded of Mom that night, finding her sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. Our lives are in ruins, and she's posting beach pictures. Mom flinched. "Anger won't bring the money back, Emily. Neither will sitting in the dark. We need to do something." But what could we do? We filed a civil claim, but without knowing Rachel's location, we couldn't serve her papers. We reported the identity theft, but the credit card company said it would take months to investigate. We were drowning in a sea of bureaucratic red tape while Rachel sipped cocktails on a distant shore. I dropped out of grad school. There was no money for tuition, and the emergency loan I applied for was denied. I sold my car, the used Honda that Dad had helped me pick out when I got my first real job, for a fraction of its worth, just to cover next month's rent. The worst part wasn't the financial devastation. It was the silence at dinner, the empty chair where Rachel should have been, the questions in the eyes of family friends who'd heard rumors but were too polite to ask directly. "I miss who I thought she was," I confessed to Mom one night, tears streaming down my face. "I keep thinking this is a nightmare I'll wake up from." Mom just squeezed my hand, but her eyes held something I couldn't decipher. Not just grief, but something that looked almost like fear. When I pressed her about it, she quickly changed the subject. As the weeks stretched into months, I found myself standing in the doorway of Rachel's abandoned room late at night, trying to understand what had driven my sister, my best friend, to destroy our family. What kind of person could walk away from everything and everyone without a backward glance? And most importantly, what secrets was my mother keeping behind her fearful eyes? 3 months after Rachel's disappearance, I stood behind the counter at Brew Haven, forcing a smile as I handed a businessman his third espresso of the morning. My feet ached. My back screamed. I'd been at the coffee shop since 5 a.m., and I still had an 8-hour shift at the call center ahead of me. "Thanks for coming in," I said mechanically, the words hollow from repetition. This wasn't the life I'd planned. 6 months ago, I'd been preparing my doctoral thesis in architectural history. Now I was memorizing coffee orders and reciting customer service scripts to pay for Mom's heart medication. The email from the university still burned in my inbox. "We regret to inform you that your academic deferment has been denied. Your position in the program has been offered to another candidate." 7 years of study, 3 published papers, all of it meaningless now. "Order for Melissa," I called out, sliding a vanilla latte across the counter. The customer, a girl about my age with perfectly highlighted hair and designer boots, barely looked up from her phone as she grabbed it. Her lock screen showed a tropical beach, just like the one in Rachel's Instagram post. "Excuse me," I blurted out before I could stop myself. "That beach, where is it?" The girl glanced up, surprised. "Oh, Tulum, in Mexico." She smiled, misreading my interest. "You should totally go if you can. It's like magical." Magical. While I worked 16-hour days, my sister was living in paradise with our money. That night, I shuffled into our house, the house we might lose if next month's mortgage payment fell through, and found Mom sitting at Dad's desk, the one place she'd avoided since his death. "Are you okay?" I asked, dropping my bags by the door. She quickly shut a drawer. "Just reminiscing." I was too exhausted to press further. I collapsed onto the couch, kicking off shoes that had long since stopped providing support. The bank called again. They won't extend the mortgage grace period past next Friday. Mom nodded absently, her gaze drifting to a framed photo of Dad on the wall. The formal one from his company website, where he looked more businessman than family man. "Were you in Dad's study earlier?" I asked, remembering something odd from my morning rush. I thought I saw the light on. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed Mom's face. I might have left it on last night. Another lie. Mom had been acting strange for weeks, disappearing into Dad's study when she thought I was asleep. What was she looking for? What was she hiding? My phone buzzed with a notification. I'd blocked Rachel on everything, but social media algorithms had their own cruel way of finding connections. A mutual friend had tagged Rachel in a post. There she was, lounging on a yacht, champagne flute in hand. The caption read, "Celebrating Rachel's new jewelry line launch. So proud of you, babe. Hashtag boss babe, hashtag entrepreneur life. Jewelry line? With our money? The money that was supposed to help us survive after Dad's death? She's in Mexico," I said, turning my phone to show Mom. "And apparently she's starting a business with our savings." Mom barely glanced at the screen. "Emily, please. Not tonight."
When then?
"When are we going to talk about how she's living like royalty while we're about to lose our house? How she's launching a business with money she stole from us?" Mom flinched. "What good will it do? She's gone." "What's wrong with you?" I erupted, months of frustration boiling over. "It's like you're afraid of her. Your own daughter stole everything from us and you act like you expected it." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Mom's face went pale. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Then help me understand." She shook her head, her hands trembling. "I can't. Not yet." I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I drove to the beach, the one place that still brought me peace despite the memories of family vacations that now seemed like elaborate lies. As I watched the waves crash against the shore, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello." I answered cautiously. "Is this Emily Carter?" a male voice asked.
"Yes."
"Who's this?" "My name is Marcus Winters. I was your father's attorney." My heart skipped. Dad's lawyer was Harold Goldman. "No," the man said firmly. "I represented your father for 15 years. Harold Goldman was your sister's choice, brought in after your father's death." The ground seemed to shift beneath me. "What are you saying?" "I've been trying to reach you for months. Your sister has blocked my number from your mother's phone. There are irregularities with your father's estate that we need to discuss." My mind raced. "What kind of irregularities?" "Not over the phone," he said urgently. "Meet me tomorrow. My office downtown. And Miss Carter, don't tell your mother. Or anyone else." As I hung up, a notification flashed on my screen, an email from the mortgage company. Final notice. I sat there as darkness fell, waves crashing like the thoughts in my mind. What had Rachel done beyond stealing our savings? What secrets had died with my father? And why was my mother so afraid to confront the truth? Whatever answers awaited me in Marcus Winters' office tomorrow, one thing was clear. The sister I thought I knew had never existed at all. I never made it to Marcus Winters' office. That night, a storm hit our town with unexpected fury. Not just rain, but the kind of storm that feels personal, wind that finds every loose shingle, lightning that illuminates all your fears, thunder that drowns out your thoughts. I was still awake at midnight, staring at my ceiling as rain hammered against my window. The power had been out for hours. In the flickering candlelight, I'd rehearsed what I would say to Marcus Winters, what questions I would ask, what accusations I would make against the sister who had destroyed our lives. Then I heard it, a crash from upstairs, followed by my mother's cry. I bolted from my bed, nearly tripping over furniture as I navigated the darkened house. "Mom," I called out, my voice barely audible over the storm's rage. A flash of lightning revealed her silhouette in the doorway of Dad's study. Water was cascading from the ceiling, drenching everything, the antique desk, the bookshelves, the filing cabinets where Dad had kept every important family document. "The ceiling," Mom gasped, pointing to a growing stain on the plaster. "I think a tree branch hit the roof." I grabbed a bucket from the hall closet, pushing it under the worst of the leak. "We need to move everything," I said, already pulling books from shelves, piling papers onto higher surfaces. Mom didn't move. She stood frozen, staring at a small wooden box clutched in her hands. Water dripped from its edges, but she held it like it contained something irreplaceable. "Mom, what is that?" She didn't seem to hear me. Her eyes were distant, her fingers trembling as they traced the box's simple brass latch. "Mom," I raised my voice, snapping her out of whatever trance had claimed her. She looked up, her face pale in the dim light of my phone's flashlight. "It's time," she whispered, so quietly I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Time for what? What's in the box?" Another crack of thunder shook the house. Mom flinched, but didn't look away from me. "Something your father left. Something I should have given you months ago." My heart stuttered. Is this about what Marcus Winters called about? About the irregularities with Dad's estate? Her eyes widened. "Marcus called you? When?" "Today," he said. "Not here," she interrupted, glancing around as if the walls might be listening. "Downstairs." We retreated to the kitchen, the least damaged part of the house. Mom placed the wooden box on the table between us, her hands still protecting it as if it might vanish. "Your father wrote you a letter," she said finally, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Before he died. When he knew." Knew what? That Rachel wasn't who he thought she was. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. Mom's eyes filled with tears.
He discovered something.
About Rachel. About money missing from the business. Missing money?
What are you talking about?
She pushed the box toward me. "It's all in here. The letter explains everything. There's also a key to a safety deposit box at First National." My hands shook as I opened the latch. Inside was a yellowed envelope with my name written in Dad's familiar handwriting, and beneath it a small brass key. "Why didn't you give this to me before?" I demanded, anger flaring. "After everything that's happened, after what Rachel did, why keep this hidden?" Mom's shoulders sagged under the weight of my accusation. "Because I was afraid," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Rachel," she threatened me, "after your father died, said if I ever mentioned what he discovered, she'd make sure I regretted it." "Threatened you? Her own mother?" Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know what she's capable of, Emily. What she's done." I stared at the envelope in my hand, suddenly afraid of what it might contain. "Does this have something to do with the will? With what Marcus Winters wants to tell me?" "Yes." Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Your father changed his will after he found out what Rachel was doing. He tried to protect you, to protect all of us, but Rachel found out. That's why she emptied our accounts and ran." I finished, the pieces suddenly clicking into place. She knew something was coming. Thunder cracked again, closer this time. The lights flickered briefly before dying again. "Read it," Mom urged. "Read what your father wrote." With trembling fingers, I broke the seal on the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened, and I've left you to face what's coming alone. For that, I am deeply sorry. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear, but you deserve the truth. For years, I believed I was building a legacy for both my daughters. I was wrong. 3 months ago, I discovered that Rachel has been systematically siphoning funds from the company, hundreds of thousands of dollars, disguised as vendor payments, but redirected to offshore accounts in her name. When confronted, she showed no remorse. Instead, she threatened to destroy the company's reputation if I reported her. I've hidden proof of everything in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. The key is enclosed with this letter. Inside, you'll find documentation of her theft, along with my revised will. Emily, I have left everything to you, the house, the business, what remains of our savings. Rachel receives nothing. She's made her choice, and I've made mine. Trust Marcus Winters. He's the only one who knows the whole truth. I love you, Emily. I've always been proud of your integrity. Now, I need you to be stronger than you've ever been."
Dad.
I looked up from the letter, my vision blurred with tears. "He knew," I whispered. "He knew what she was, and he tried to stop her." Mom nodded, her face a mask of grief and guilt. "I should have given you this sooner. I was just so afraid of what Rachel might do. She's not the person we thought she was, Emily. She never was." As if punctuating Mom's confession, a massive crack of thunder shook the house, followed by the sound of shattering glass upstairs. In that moment, Staring at my father's final words, I felt something inside me harden, a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. Tomorrow, I would go to the bank. I would find the safety deposit box. And then I would make Rachel pay for everything she'd taken from us. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing within me. First National Bank stood like a fortress in the morning light, its stone facade unmarked by the previous night's storm. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under chandelier light as if nothing in the world had changed, as if my entire reality hadn't just been shattered. "May I help you?" The receptionist's smile was practiced, perfect. "I need to access a safety deposit box," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My father's. 20 minutes and several forms later, I sat alone in a small viewing room, a metal box on the table before me. The key from Dad's wooden box fit perfectly. Inside were 3 folders, each labeled in Dad's precise handwriting. The first, financial records. The second, legal documents. The third, simply, for Emily. I opened the financial records first. Pages of bank statements, transaction logs, and highlighted transfers told a story that made my stomach churn. For over 3 years, Rachel had been siphoning money from the family business. Not small amounts, either. Hundreds of thousands of dollars diverted to shell companies, then to personal accounts in her name. The second folder contained Dad's real will, dated just 6 weeks before his death, and properly notarized. I scanned the document, my heart hammering against my ribs. Hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments, being of sound mind. To my daughter, Emily and Carter, I bequeath the entirety of my estate, including but not limited to the family residence at 1428 Oakwood Drive, all business interests in Carter Construction Company, and all financial holdings. No mention of Rachel. Not a single penny. A note paper-clipped to the will explained, "In light of Rachel Carter's criminal misappropriation of company funds, see attached documentation. She has been removed as beneficiary." The third folder contained photographs, Rachel with James at luxury hotels, casinos, jewelry stores. Photos taken by a private investigator, based on the timestamps and notes. Dad had been tracking her spending, building his case methodically. At the bottom of the box lay a sealed envelope addressed to Marcus Winters. A note on the outside read, "Emily, please deliver this personally. It details everything." I stumbled out of the bank into blinding sunlight, documents clutched to my chest like armor. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Any news?" Before I could respond, another message appeared from an unknown number. "Ms. Carter, Marcus Winters here. I've been trying to reach you. Urgent we speak today. My office, 2 p.m. I texted back a simple "I'll be there" and headed straight to his downtown office. Marcus Winters wasn't what I expected. In his late 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a bow tie, he looked more like a kindly professor than a corporate attorney. "Emily," he said, rising to greet me. "You look just like your father." I placed the envelope on his desk. "He left this for you." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I've been hoping this would find its way to me. May I?" As he read, his expression darkened. "This confirms what I suspected. Your sister and that boyfriend of hers didn't just take your savings. They conducted a systematic fraud against your father's company." "I know," I said quietly. "I saw the records." "What you may not know," Marcus continued, "is that after your father died, Rachel presented a different will to Harold Goldman, a will your father supposedly signed just days before his death." "A forgery?" "Almost certainly. And there's more." He slid a document across the desk. "This is a transfer of deed for your family home, supposedly signed by your mother 3 weeks ago." My blood ran cold. "That's impossible. We've been living there. Mom would never." "Of course not. It's another forgery. Rachel has been busy preparing to liquidate everything she could get her hands on. The property is already under contract to an overseas buyer. How could she do this? How could she think she'd get away with it?" Marcus sighed, removing his glasses. "People like your sister, they think the rules don't apply to them. They believe they're entitled to take whatever they want. What do we do now? We fight back." He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Janet, bring in the paperwork we prepared." His assistant entered with a stack of documents. "These are court orders," Marcus explained. "The first freezes all assets connected to Rachel Carter and James Webster. The second invalidates the fraudulent will. The third begins criminal proceedings for wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement." My hand trembled as I signed each document. "Will this be enough?" "It's a start." Marcus leaned forward. "Emily, there's something else you should know. Based on the transactions I've traced, Rachel and James are currently in Tulum, Mexico. They've purchased a condo there under the name Cartwright. They believe they're untouchable." I thought of Rachel lounging on that beach while I worked 16-hour days, of Mom crying over unpaid bills, of Dad's final letter. "They're wrong," I said, my voice hardening. "What's our next step?" "The authorities have been notified, but international cases move slowly." However, a small smile crossed his face. "Your father built quite a network during his career. I have contacts in Mexico who can serve Rachel personally with these papers immediately." "I want to be there," I said suddenly. "When she gets them, I want to see her face." Marcus studied me for a long moment. "That can be arranged. But are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As I left Marcus's office, my phone pinged with an Instagram notification. Rachel had posted again, a sunset photo from a beachfront balcony, champagne flute in hand. The caption read, "Living my truth. #blessed, #no regrets." Little did she know, her borrowed time in paradise was about to run out. Dad had left me everything, not just his assets, but his determination to see justice done. Rachel thought she had stolen my future. Now I was coming to take back what was rightfully mine. Tulum was exactly as beautiful as the photos promised: crystal waters, white sand beaches, and a vibrant turquoise sky that seemed almost artificially perfect. Paradise, if you could ignore what it represented. My sister's betrayal funded by stolen money. "That's the building." Marcus's local contact, Roberto, pointed to a sleek modern structure overlooking the beach. "Penthouse suite. She's been here 3 months now." I adjusted my sunglasses, studying the gleaming glass tower. "And you're sure she's there now?" Roberto nodded. "She and her boyfriend returned from breakfast 30 minutes ago. They typically don't leave again until evening." "The papers?" "All ready," he confirmed, patting his briefcase. "Court orders from both U.S. and Mexican authorities. The moment these are served, her accounts freeze. The property seizure begins immediately." I took a deep breath. "Let's go." The elevator ride to the top floor felt surreal. For months, Rachel had existed as an abstract villain in my mind, a thief who had taken everything and vanished. Now, I was minutes away from facing her. "Are you ready for this?" Roberto asked as the elevator doors opened to a private foyer. I squared my shoulders. "I've been ready since the day she left." He pressed the doorbell.
Once. Twice.
No answer. "They're definitely inside," Roberto murmured, pressing it again. Finally, the door swung open. James stood there, his perfect tan contrasting with white linen pants and an unbuttoned shirt. His expression shifted from annoyance to shock when he saw me. "Emily." He recovered quickly, forcing a smile. "What a surprise. How did you find us?" "Where's Rachel?" I kept my voice steady. "She's not." "James? Who is it?" Rachel's voice floated from inside, followed by her appearance in the doorway. She froze when she saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. My sister looked different, her hair lighter, her skin tanned, designer sunglasses perched on her head. But her eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. "Emily," she said finally, her voice eerily calm. "What an unexpected visit." Roberto stepped forward. "Ms. Rachel Carter? I'm here to serve you with these legal documents." Rachel's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flashed with something. Fear, perhaps? "I think you've made a mistake. My name is Rachel Cartwright. Not according to your birth certificate," I said. "Or your father's will. The real one." Her composure cracked slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside?" Roberto suggested firmly. Unless you'd prefer to discuss fraud, embezzlement, and forgery in the hallway where your neighbors can hear. James glanced nervously between Rachel and us. Babe, maybe we should. Fine, Rachel snapped, stepping aside. The penthouse was stunning. Open concept with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Modern furniture, abstract art, a kitchen that had never been used. The spoils of theft displayed like trophies. You have 5 minutes, Rachel said, crossing her arms. Then I'm calling security. Roberto placed the documents on the glass coffee table. These papers freeze all assets connected to you and Mr. Webster. They also invalidate the fraudulent will you presented after your father's death and begin criminal proceedings for multiple felonies. James paled. What is he talking about, Rachel? She ignored him, her eyes locked on me. You always wanted to be me, she hissed. Perfect little Emily, always trying to steal Dad's attention. I never wanted to be you. I replied calmly. I just wanted a sister who didn't steal from her own family. I deserved that money, she exploded. I worked for Dad for years while you were off playing academic. Do you know what it's like working for someone who constantly compares you to your perfect sister? So you stole from him? From his company? From people who trusted you? I took what I was owed. Roberto cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, you might want to review these documents. They detail the evidence of your embezzlement. Over $480,000 from Carter Construction, plus the recent theft of family savings. James grabbed the papers, scanning them with growing horror. Rachel, what did you do? Shut up, James, she snapped. There's also the matter of the forged will, Roberto continued, and the fraudulent attempt to sell your family home using forged documents. Rachel's face contorted with rage. You can't prove any of this. Dad had you investigated, I said quietly. He knew everything, Rachel. That's why he changed his will. That's why he left it all to me. She laughed, a brittle sound. And you believe that? Dad would never cut me out completely. But he did. I pulled out a copy of the real will. Right here. It says your name exactly once, to explicitly disinherit you. The blood drained from her face as she scanned the document. This isn't real. Dad loved me. He did love you, I interrupted. That's why he tried to protect you from yourself for so long. But in the end, he had to protect the rest of us from you. Rachel's mask finally shattered. She lunged toward me, her perfectly manicured nails aimed at my face. You ruined everything. Roberto stepped between us, catching her wrist. That's enough, Miss Carter. Physical assault will only add to your charges. Get out, she screamed. All of you, get out. We're leaving, I said calmly. But you should know, as of this morning, your accounts are frozen. Your credit cards are canceled. This property is being seized as proceeds of crime. James sank onto the sofa, head in his hands. I didn't know, he muttered. I swear I didn't know. Rachel whirled on him. Shut up, you spineless. The authorities will be here within the hour, Roberto interrupted. I suggest you both cooperate fully. It might help reduce your sentences. As we turned to leave, Rachel grabbed my arm. You think you've won, she hissed. You're nothing without me. You'll always be nothing. I looked into my sister's eyes, the same eyes I'd trusted my entire life, and felt nothing but pity. No, Rachel. You're nothing without Dad's money. And now it's gone. Walking away from her screams felt like closing a chapter of my life. As the elevator doors closed, Roberto gave me a small smile. Your father would be proud, he said quietly. For the first time in months, I believed that might be true. 1 year later, the brass plaque gleamed in the morning sunlight. Carter Construction and Development, founded 1989, reborn 2024. I ran my fingers over the engraved letters, feeling the weight of legacy and renewal in their shape. Behind me, a dozen employees filed into the renovated headquarters of what was once my father's company and was now mine. Ready for the meeting, Miss Carter? My assistant, Liam, appeared at my elbow with a tablet and coffee. As I'll ever be, I smiled, accepting both. Is Mom here yet? Arrived 5 minutes ago. She's waiting in the conference room with the investors. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Today marked the official launch of our biggest project yet, an affordable housing development on the east side of town. The kind of project Dad had always dreamed of, but never had the capital to pursue. The journey here hadn't been easy. When I returned from Mexico, Rachel's mess still required months to untangle. Her fraud case had made headlines. Former friends avoided eye contact at the grocery store. Banks were hesitant to work with the Carter name. But slowly, methodically, I rebuilt what she had tried to destroy. First came the practical matters. I used recovered funds to pay off the mortgage and secure Mom's medication. Then I re-enrolled in my doctoral program, arranging for evening classes so I could work at the company during the day. The building itself had sat empty for months after Dad's death. When I first unlocked the doors, dust covered everything: his desk, the blueprints still unfurled on drafting tables, family photos lining the walls. It felt like opening a time capsule. "What will you do with it?" Mom had asked as we walked through the silent office that first day. "Bring it back to life," I'd replied, surprising myself with my certainty. I started small, contacting Dad's former clients, rehiring key employees who'd been let go in the chaos after his death. Many were skeptical at first. What did an architectural historian know about running a construction company? More than I'd realized, as it turned out. All those years of studying how structures were built throughout history gave me a unique perspective. Where Dad had focused on conventional developments, I saw opportunities to blend historical preservation with modern needs. "Ms. Carter?" Liam's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "They're waiting." I smoothed my blazer and followed him to the conference room. Inside, Mom sat at the table alongside representatives from the city council and our investment partners. Her smile when I entered contained a pride I'd never seen before. "Good morning, everyone," I began, setting down my coffee. "Thank you for joining us for this milestone moment." As I presented our vision for the East Side development, affordable units built with sustainable materials, community gardens, a daycare center, I felt Dad's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a foundation upon which I was building something new. The meeting concluded with handshakes and signatures. As the room cleared, Mom approached with misty eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she said, squeezing my hand. "Not just of the business, but of you. How you've handled everything." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied. It was true. After the initial shock wore off, Mom had become my strongest ally, working alongside me to rebuild our lives. "Have you seen the news?" she asked quietly. I nodded. We both knew what she meant. Rachel's trial had concluded last week. Guilty on all counts. 5 years in federal prison, with James receiving a lighter sentence for cooperation. The sister I'd once adored was now inmate number 48721, her designer clothes exchanged for prison scrubs, her oceanfront views replaced by concrete walls. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only a lingering sadness for what might have been. I sent her a letter, I admitted, offered to set up a trust for when she's released. Something to help her start over. Mom's eyes widened. After everything she did? Because of everything she did, I corrected gently. I don't want to be defined by resentment. Dad taught me better than that. Later that evening, I stood alone in what had been Dad's office, now mine. The walls displayed both his achievements and my new additions. His architectural awards beside my framed dissertation. His handwritten business plan alongside my expansion strategy. On the desk sat a framed photo taken at my graduation years ago. Dad with his arm around me, both of us laughing at some forgotten joke. Beside it lay a paperweight containing the brass key that had unlocked the safety deposit box, a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. My phone buzzed with a notification. Marcus Winters, checking in as he did every few weeks since our Mexico trip. Heard about the East Side project approval. Congratulations. Your father always said you'd surpass him someday. I smiled, my fingers tracing the edge of the photo frame. Dad had seen something in me I hadn't recognized in myself. Not just integrity, but resilience. The ability to build something meaningful from ruins. Rachel had called me the forgotten sister all our lives. The quiet one. the one who stayed in the background while she commanded attention. But Dad had known better. In his final letter, he'd written, "Rachel has already made her choices. This is for the one who stayed." He hadn't just been referring to the inheritance. He'd been acknowledging the person I'd always been, someone who faced challenges rather than running from them, someone who built rather than took. Outside my window, the company sign illuminated the growing dusk. Carter Construction and Development. My company now. My legacy to shape. I was no longer the forgotten sister. I was Emily Carter, exactly who I was meant to be. And that was enough.